Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am just once again thrilled to be here with all of my friends here. And I always get blown away by the love and the support that I feel when I come in these doors. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And thank you for having me back again. We're going to talk this morning about something that has become real powerful for me. And that is called becoming conscious of your unconscious. And this isn't necessarily a concept that's new to me. I mean, I walked in these doors at Unity over 35 years ago. So when I'm talking about the experience that I've been having lately isn't like this earth-shattering thing, but that doesn't mean it's not powerful. It doesn't mean it's not powerful. What I'm talking about when I talk about becoming conscious of your unconscious is that what I've noticed in my own life, that when I've had very successful, happy times, that I'm doing a lot of things that I'm fully conscious of, and I'm having very, very successful results as a result of it. And I also noticed when I'm not having a very good time and I'm struggling a little bit, that I'm doing a lot of things unconsciously. And what I mean by that when I talk about conscious versus unconscious, what I'm talking about specifically are the thoughts that we tell ourselves on a day in and day out basis. And because of the thoughts we're telling ourselves every single day, every single moment of every single day, what happens as a result, it causes us to take certain actions, and sometimes those actions are very healthy and very helpful, and sometimes they're not. I don't know how many people are aware of the fact that I started to take the certification course to become a life coach. About 2 months ago, I went to Chicago, and it's a process that we go through. And what's fascinating to me, and what I think I get a kick out of, is a lot of the principles regarding life coaching are the same ones that I've been learning here at Unity for the past 35 years. So what I kind of get a kick out of is that these people are coming in, and they're seeing all these new different phrases and these different life principles and stuff like that, and they're like, wow! And I just sit there and I smile, and I think to myself, how blessed. How cool is it that I've been living with this stuff for over 35 years and been able to apply this stuff in my own life? But one of the things they talk about in terms of the life coach, and one of the things that we're trained to do, is to pick on something that we call repeatable patterns. Repeatable patterns are things that we do. We all, whether we're conscious of this or we're unconscious of it, we all have repeatable patterns that we do over and over and over again. And I would argue that if I sat there and talked to you or spent any time with you and we started to form a friendship and we talked on a regular basis just by observation, I would notice some of those repeatable patterns, just like you would probably notice some of my repeatable patterns. So what I'm talking about specifically are those repeatable patterns, the ones that can honestly hurt us. And so one of the examples that I like to use is one where, from a life coaching standpoint, we'll have somebody that'll come in and we'll be talking to this person, and this person, it sounds something like this. It goes, I was really, really excited about our session today, and we were going to talk, and we were going to go through all this stuff, and all of a sudden I got on the phone with this friend of mine, and my friend said something that was it really hurt me. It really, really hurt me, and it made me feel terrible, and I just couldn't get prepared for this thing, and I just don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, we talk to him a week or two later, and you start talking to the person, goes, I was really excited about this day. I really started the day off great. I was having a great time. But then all of a sudden, I went into work, and that boss of mine, can you believe what that boss said to me? Do you know what that boss did? That boss said this, and that, and because of it, it just ruined my whole day. I just can't believe that. And so, once again, he comes in a week later, and all of a sudden, I'm talking to him, and all of a sudden the message is, I'm talking to my spouse, and all of a sudden my spouse says something, and it upsets me. It gets me so mad, and I was looking so forward to our session. God, you know what? But it just ruined my entire day, and it just wiped everything out. So I just don't know what I'm going to be able to do. So as you can see, what you've got here is something that's called a repeatable pattern this person has. And this, to me, could be one of the most powerful repeatable patterns that there is. It's something that we refer to in coaching as a victim pattern. It's powerful. It's so incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly powerful for two reasons. Number one, It takes all of your power away when you're a victim. You are basically just taking all of your God-given power away and you're handing it over to whatever circumstance you say you have absolutely no power over whatsoever. So you're sitting there and you're just basically saying, here you go. Take it. I don't want my power back. I don't want it. And the other thing that's so powerful about victim mentality or this victim repeatable pattern is that you don't have to even try. When you're talking to people in this situation, they don't even have to try. It is literally the lowest form of energy that there is, victim. Why? You've given all your power away, and then guess what you get to do? I'm out. I don't even have to try. I don't even have to try. And that's what people do. And so that would be a very good example of some of these repeatable patterns, what I would say are unhealthy repeatable patterns. You see, life is a series of these repeatable patterns. And regardless if those patterns, routines are good or bad, we'll always see the results based on the patterns that we choose. And by becoming conscious of these patterns, these routines, which we all can, if we just learn to slow down a little bit, we'll be able to make the adjustments and make the changes we're wanting. And that's exactly what we do in coaching, and that's also exactly what I've learned to do here in Unity. The same exact thing. And so some of the things, some of our repeatable patterns are actually good repeatable patterns. So I don't want to make it sound like we always have these bad things. Like, for example, some good repeatable patterns that I personally do is I've had a meditation practice for probably 25 years or so. So I get up in the morning and I spend 20 minutes, a half hour, 45 minutes just kind of meditating, writing, and spending some time with Spirit. And to me, that's an incredibly powerful, repeatable pattern. But I'm talking about some of the ones that I'm not so proud of. And so what I thought I'd do is I thought I'd share you with one of those this morning. So literally, this happened probably a week or so ago. And I'm sitting there and I get up and I have my meditation, and it was a great meditation. It's just one of those mornings where it just clicks and you just feel really good when you're done meditating. And I'm sitting there and I read my motivational spiritual book or whatever it is I'm reading at the time. It doesn't matter. I just, I look at a bookshelf, I grab a book and I start reading. And it just seems to always fit for whatever reason. Anybody have that experience? Once or twice? Yeah, me too. So what happens is I sit down and now I'm 45 minutes in and I'm just like this. Oh, this feels so good. And I get done and I've got an important email that I got to get into before I go to work. It's important, right? And I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I go to get on my computer. Mind you, I'm still blissed out. And all of a sudden, turn on the computer, go to get into my email. And as the saying goes, when technology works, it's wonderful, right? But when it doesn't work, And so I'm literally sitting there all blissed out in a state of incredible connection with the universe and God and all these great things. And the next thing you know, all of a sudden, I can't get this email, and it's really, really, really important. And it's not there. And I literally go from this blissed out state of happiness and oneness and all of this stuff to where I am literally ready to take my computer and throw it out the window. Have you ever been there? Has anybody ever been there? Amen. Amen. Yes. Yes. And I was just sitting there for a minute, and it was like all of a sudden I hear this voice, and this voice goes, "Really?" And my response, honestly, "You're damn right, really. Really, I am. Now just shut up and leave me alone." And that really was my reaction. Really. And I'm sitting there, and it's just like in that moment of consciousness, I'm just sitting there going, okay, wait a minute. Just slow down for a minute. Would you please just slow down for a minute? And as I was sitting there, all of a sudden it dawned on me, and what came through was this thought or this notion that it's happened to me so many times in my life where I'm sitting there and I'm working on something, I'm doing something, and all of a sudden it doesn't exactly go my way. And all of a sudden I go from blissed to pissed, like in a nanosecond. And it's like, it never dawned on me before that, do you think there might be a step that goes somewhere between bliss and over here? And do you think there might be something in between here? Do you think? Maybe. But no, I'm like Pavlov's dog. I'm sitting there, you pull out the bone or the food and my mouth starts salivating and I'm there. And it never even dawned on me for a half a second, there might be something between over here and over here. And that's when the information really started coming through. So I'm just going to read something to you that came through at that time as I was sitting there. Because here's one of those things, and I don't know if you guys have this happen to you, but it happens to me like this, where it just feels like, and it's a time with Spirit, and there's no judgment here. It's actually done very lovingly, but I'm still feeling so raw and so busted for what I just did. It's almost like I just want to pick up my toys and go home. And yet there's this amazing, sweet, sweet Spirit that's just sitting there and going, no, there's no judgment here. Mike, what is it that you want? What is the experience that you're choosing? Do you want to be able to start somewhere and not have to go to a 10 every time? I mean, is it a 10 every time? Couldn't there be a 2 in there somewhere? Couldn't there? Couldn't we do that? So as I was sitting there, this all of a sudden came through, and I just wrote this down. It says, Mike, there's nothing wrong with getting upset at times. That's normal. That's human. But what you're wanting at this time is to become conscious first, and then decide how you want to be and go from there. If you decide you still want to be mad, go for it. However, if something happens, and let's say it's a 2 on a 10 scale in terms of getting upset, is it really necessary to go to a level 10 every single time? Is that what you really want? Isn't there something between a 1 and a 10? Isn't there a way to react that doesn't make you go to a 10? And then I thought to myself, oh my God, of course there is. Of course there is. I don't have to go to a 10 and ruin my entire day and then sit there all upset that I went there to begin with. And as I continue to process, I really believe that when something like that came up, I really didn't even think I had a choice. I thought I had to. I just thought it was a natural part of what I was doing. It never dawned on me that there was other options. And the difference between going to a 10 automatically as opposed to waiting and stopping and being a little bit more aware is just simply a matter of being conscious. That's all it is. It's just a matter of stopping unconsciously, which is go to a 10, and becoming conscious and saying, what's appropriate here? And not only that, what do you want your experience to be in this moment? And that's really what it comes down to. It's just a matter of being conscious in the moment and then deciding. It's one thing if you have the knee-jerk reaction, but it's not, and you still want to get mad. But it's another thing if you just sit for a moment and be in it and then decide what you want to do. I have to laugh as I was sitting there, and I thought to myself this thought. I said, we pray to God, we ask God for help, we ask God to change, we ask the angels to come in, we do all our affirmations, we do all our prayers, we do all this stuff. And as I was sitting there thinking to myself, did you ever once think that maybe the greatest gift ever is for God to give you the opportunity to look and see what you're doing to yourself? Have you ever thought that? Because to me, that was one of the most incredible experiences for me, is to be able to sit there and actually see what I was doing to myself in that moment. And again, there was no judgment there. It was just a gentle observation of, look and see what you're doing. Is that really what you want? Is that how you really choose to live this moment? Is there maybe a better option for you? Is there something more powerful for you? And of course, those answers always come back yes. And so, what's interesting is when I sit there and think about it, I say to myself, how often, in not only that situation, but how many times do we sit there and we say to ourselves, when we're going to do something and we're trying to change a pattern or a habit that's maybe not serving us, that maybe it's not healthy, And, you get these things going through your head, these things that say, well, I can't change. I can't heal. I'm too old. This pattern just is never going to change for me. And how many times do we have those kind of thoughts, especially when we have goals and things that we're trying to accomplish in our life? And then we've got all these little voices that are going on in our head. The thing that blows my mind about that is if you sat there and think about it, if you had anybody in your life that came up to you and talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, do you think for 1 minute that you would tolerate it? I'm just being honest. Would you tolerate that? There is no way you would tolerate it. And yet, we sit there and we do it to ourselves every single day, every single moment, and we never, ever once check ourselves. Amen. Unless we're given the choice, unless we stop and we start to become conscious of these unconscious thoughts that are rolling through our head. The second thing I want to say about that is the thing that's really, it can be beautiful and it can be extremely scary in the same breath, is those thoughts that we're thinking. Guess what? The universe over time will respond to them. The universe will respond to them. Why does the universe respond to those thoughts? It doesn't have a choice. It doesn't have a choice. Why? Thank God, and I mean that literally, thank God, the universe hasn't forgotten who and what you are. The universe has not forgot that. We may have those glimpses where we forget, but the universe never does. So what happens is when we're sitting there saying, I'm too old, I can't do this, I can't change, I can't heal, I can't do all these things, then all of a sudden the universe just goes, okay, if that's really what they think, if that's really the way that they want to do this. And that's what happens with us, is that we're unconscious of all these thoughts going through our head, and the universe just simply does what it needs to do, and that is to support you in that decision. So, again, I think that when you think about this, especially if you've been true students and you've gone to Unity, this isn't anything that you haven't heard. This isn't like, whoa, never heard this one before. Maybe a little different of a slant on it. But I just wanted to share with you something because I thought it was rather appropriate in the story of Unity from the founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle, on what they were going through at a particular time. That was the way it was with Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. One evening in the spring of 1986, when Myrtle was desperately sick and they did not know where to turn, they went to hear Dr. Weeks, who had been recommended by a friend who'd been studying this new thought, as it was called, and felt that Myrtle might get help from it for her physical condition. They did not know much about the subject, but they had tried everything else that they knew about all that had failed. They had reached a place where they were willing to try anything. Charles Fillmore came away from that lecture long ago, feeling no different than when he had gone in. But the woman who walked out of that hall on his arm was not the same woman who'd entered it. A new, a different, a liberating and transforming conviction was blazing in her heart and mind. Everyone has gone to hear a lecture and had the experience of having some statement of the lecturer stand out so vividly in their mind that he has felt, he said that especially for me. That is the way it is with Myrtle Fillmore that night. As she walked from the hall, one statement repeated itself over and over in her mind. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. Over and over in her mind, the words toiled like a bell. I am the child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. In 1 hour, Myrtle Fillmore's whole outlook toward herself and her life had been changed. Like a revelation, and surely it was, this simple and divine idea that she was a beloved child of God, that God's will for her could not only be perfect life and wholeness, filled her mind and possessed her being. The old belief that she was an invalid, that she had been born to be an invalid, was as waters that have passed away. Even as she stepped out of the doors of the hall, this divine realization was working in her, not only in her mind, but in the very cells of her body. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit illness and sickness. Like a little leaven that leavens the whole loaf, this thought was to work in there until it made her every whit whole. It was not to let her go until through her thousands of persons had been made whole too. It was not to let her go until she and her husband, who was soon set afire with it too, had founded a faith that reached around the world and blessed the lives of millions of persons with whom her would joyously declare, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. And that's unity. That's exactly what they did. She had tuberculosis. Back in those days, it was a death sentence. And yet she was able to transform her life, heal her life, and start an international movement called Unity, and healed thousands and thousands and thousands of lives by just simply becoming consciously aware of her unconscious. She brought up and believed that her body was old, ragged, and invalid. That's what she'd been telling herself her entire life. And in one moment, she decided to change the message she was telling herself, that she was a child of God, and she did not inherit the sickness. And she healed herself. And she's not the only one to do it. It's not like this is something that's, only Myrtle Fillmore did or only Charles Fillmore did. We all know stories of people that have done that in our lives. We have. We've noticed it. We've seen it. We've read about it. And so just a couple things in closing with you. When we talk about becoming conscious of your unconscious, I'm going to give you my best shot at suggesting how you do this, but I will tell you that the truth is you've got to find your own road and your own path. And it really doesn't matter how you do it. The only thing that matters is doing your best to try to become conscious, especially if those thoughts are damaging or they hurt you. So number one, listen to what you're saying to yourself about yourself. Now for some, that's kind of easy, but some people don't think there's anything going on, there's nothing wrong, everything is great, and yet you look at their life and it's just... So, listen to yourself, listen to what you're saying to yourself and what you're telling yourself. Whether that takes a journal, whatever that takes, see what you can do. Realize, number two, that whatever it is, the universe will respond over time. It does. So if you're telling yourself that you're an invalid, over time your body's going to start breaking down. If you tell yourself you're a brilliant child of God that doesn't inherit sickness or illness, chances are your body's going to follow after that if you work at it and you stay with it. The third thing I would tell you is to change what you are telling yourself about yourself. Now I'm going to share a little technique that we do in life coaching. And what we do in life coaching is a couple of things regarding these little buggers. We call them in life coaching, we call them gremlins. And so what we do with the gremlins is, first of all, we name them. So, if you've got, and I'm just going to play with you a little bit this morning. So if you've got a gremlin, and let's say it's called self-doubt, and you hear all of a sudden you're starting to work on something, or you decide to set out for a goal, and all of a sudden the self-doubt gremlin calls up, name it. So let's call the self-doubt gremlin Bob. So Bob is going to be the self-doubt gremlin, right? The second thing that you do is you actually have a conversation with Bob. So when you're doing life coaching, it would go something along the lines of this. What I do is I want someone to stand there, and I want to be, in this case, take on the form of the gremlin, and then I want the person I'm working with to talk to me like I'm the gremlin and what it would really like to tell that gremlin. So I'm going to just give you an example of what it sounds like me talking to my self-doubt gremlin, okay? So what that's going to sound like is something like this. It's going to be like this. Bob, for 52 years of my life, I have sat there and believed every single solid word that you've told me, even though I have no idea where it came from, why it came from, or anything else like that. I don't even think you're mine, quite frankly. But you know what? I bought it hook, line, and sinker. But let me tell you something, Bob. Those rules no longer apply. From now on, moving forward in my life, I'm showing up and I'm the one that's going to decide who's going to do what, where, how, and when. No longer am I going to listen to you tell me that I have no right or no ability to go forward in my life. No longer am I going to have you tell me that I can't change. No longer am I going to tell you that I can't heal. In fact, Bob, I'm going to stand up here and tell you right now, pick up your toys and go home. right now. And that's what we do. So what we do is we literally have the client name it. And when the gremlin shows up, we just have the person sit there and have a conversation with the gremlin. And you know what? It can be the same conversation every time if you want. Or you can change it if you want to, too. Doesn't matter. But I just thought I'd share that with you because it's kind of fun. And then after that, just repeat. Just keep on working to it until, you know what? Eventually the gremlin, these unconscious thoughts, number one, you're going to do something consciously aware of it. Because some people think that when those thoughts go through our heads that you can't even stand up to Bob. They think they just got to let the thing sit there and run its course over and over and over and over and over again. You don't. You're a conscious being if you decide to be a conscious being. That's where your power is. In closing, I just want to say that becoming conscious of your unconscious is one of the most incredible gifts that we've ever been given, or that we can give ourselves. Yes, give yourself the gift of becoming conscious. It's a beautiful gift. It's also one of the greatest opportunities we have to heal, to change, and move forward with our lives. It's exactly what Charles and Myrtle did. It's exactly what they did. They fully remembered and woke up to the fact and who and what they are. A divine child of God who is loved and blessed beyond our wildest measure. And you know what? They accepted it first, and then they lived it second. And what I want to leave you with is the idea or the thought that just like Charles and Myrtle, just like every single other person that has done it and people that you may know or may have read about, every single person sitting in this audience right now has that same spark, that same awareness, that same power within yourself. Every single one of us do, right here, right now. And the ability to tap into that, the ability to remember who and what you are, for no other reason other than it's your God-given right to stand in your power and take it fully back. That's where it's at. And so the only thing that I would challenge you on, the only thing that I would say, is to have the courage to become conscious of your unconscious. Do your work. You guys, you are needed. We are needed. I don't know if you've read a newspaper lately. We are needed. I call us the light workers. And we're needed more now than ever. I hate to tell you this, but if you think those politicians are going to fix the mess that we're in right now, wrong answer. The good answer is, though, in my opinion, the change that everybody's hoping for is already happening. It's already happening because it's happening right here. And all I'm going to ask you this morning is to please come along for the ride. Blessings. Thank you.